Good morning, everyone. In the news now is an article that's been a long time coming. And if you actually look at the situation with regards to Eskom and the threat to Eskom and power generation within South Africa and the Southern African region, there is nothing more threatening than what is before us right now. And in this Business Insider article, the headline reads Eskom says it is now legally obliged to shut down one third of its generating capacity. That's 16,000 megawatts based on the theoretical installed generating capacity that Eskom has. And obviously, the country cannot afford this. Eskom says a pollution decision means it is now obligated to shut down 16,000 megawatts worth of coal-fired electricity generators. Now, I'm not sure that the public was considered in this at all, or that the broader South African landscape was considered in this decision. That is just about a third of its total theoretical capacity. We say theoretical because a lot of the Eskom stations are shut down due to breakdowns, etc. So theoretically, if all the stations could run at the same time, we would be able to generate that kind of capacity. An air quality regulator rejected a package of Eskom requests to be exempt from legal limits on pollutants such as sulfur dioxide. Now, Eskom has been applying to get exemption from this for a very long period of time. And this regulator that was appointed has said, sorry, we're not happy um, with your appeal to be exempt. And therefore now, legally, right now, Eskom is supposed to shut down 16,000 megawatts worth of generating capacity, which is obviously obscene. It's ridiculous. It can't happen. So these people have put through many of the decisions that's been made overseas by people that have not been elected by the South African public to now take actions legally that cannot happen. So it's not going to happen. Eskom's not going to shut down 16,000 megawatts. I mean, the country will absolutely come to a standstill. Eskom has referred to an appeal on the pollution standard, but seems to be seeking a political solution. And in this article, it says that as the current legal situation stands, so this is legal, Eskom says it must shut down power stations that contribute about a third of its total installed capacity of 48,000 megawatts. So legally, they are supposed to shut down those stations right now. On Tuesday morning, Eskom responded to and provided more detail of a set of regulatory decisions on its air pollution limits. Now, this regulator, did they consider politically what this actually means? What this means for the country? And as I've said before, the three things that will be targeted will be the Zulu Kingdom, Eskom, and Eskom stability and supply stability, and then the secession debate. So everything will start tightening down on Eskom, and the situation within Eskom, it will become worse and worse. And now we're finding ourselves in a situation where a regulator, which I'm sure the public couldn't care about at all, they just want electricity in their plugs, says that that installed capacity has to be shut down. Now, what that could do is literally remove 10,000 megawatts from the grid. It will be so unstable that a blackout will almost be inevitable. And at some stage, it'll be very difficult to stabilize the grid like that, the way that Eskom's grid is put together. Um, on Tuesday morning, Eskom responded to and provided more detail of a set of regulatory decisions on its air pollution limits. Eskom is one of the worst air polluters in the world, and has long said it cannot both comply with legal limits and keep the lights on. It can't do both things. This is obvious. Okay? And I quote, if implemented, the decision will result in an immediate, listen to this, immediate shutting down of 16,000 megawatts of installed coal-fired capacity, Eskom said in a statement. Now, do you, the South African public, do you want to allow international decisions that were made, that was ratified by our government, they don't know what they're doing, to actually remove 16,000 megawatts out of our grid? These people are insane. As such, Eskom is engaging with the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment, oh my word, the Department of Public Enterprises, even worse, the Department of Minerals and Energy, and others in respect of the way forward. So the Eskom is now turning to politicians to try and solve this problem. Because it's politicians that got us into the situation because they don't have the brains to actually consider what they are signing. On Monday evening, Eskom's environmental consultants released decisions on its Matimba and Medupi power stations, but also affected are 4 other power stations. Further documents now published by Eskom show Matla, Duva and Letaba. Meanwhile, Eskom's applications on 4 more stations, Mayuba, Tetuka, Kendall and Kriel, were only partially granted. Now, you will see how 2030 comes into the ball game here, okay, as I continue with the article, and it's almost finished, so please stay with me. This is important that you understand how Agenda 2030 plays into this game. The only pollution waivers Eskom did get were for a set of 7 power stations, all of which are due to be shut down by 2030. At the latest, Grootvlei, Arnold, Hedrina, Camden and Komati, and the peaking stations Acacia and Port Rex. For those stations, the company's requests were fully granted. In other words, in line with Agenda 2030, they will be shut down by 2030. That's around the corner. Now, how do you build generating capacity in that time to replace all of that? We can't. We don't have the funds to do it unless the rest of the world has something up their sleeve and they will fund something that will bind our politicians to things we did not vote for. Not in a referendum, not in an election. And this is why people need to start waking up. For 7 other power stations, Eskom said, all of which are due to be shut down by 2030 at the latest, it received partial waivers, but those are not enough. A document titled referred to, and Eskom planned to appeal the decision not to raise its pollution limits. But the company's actual statement refers to engagement with various government departments, suggesting a more political approach. Well, it's the politicians that got us into this situation, so I can understand that. In September, South Africa formally lodged dramatically enhanced commitments on climate change, moving forward by a decade the point at which greenhouse gas emissions are due to start declining, and setting 2030 targets, nearly a third lower than previously promised. That commitment was linked to a strong statement on the need for the more developed world to help fund those goals as part of a just energy transition. But forcing it to reduce its output of pollutants such as sulfur dioxide now would actually harm climate change plans. Eskom said on Tuesday, because it would delay the country's plans for a just energy transition toward a cleaner electricity supply. So what Eskom is saying is that basically it's going to harm the entire country. So there will be no just energy transition because we are considered third world within this greater plan of this greater good plan of this. Eskom is committed to its mandate to supply stable electricity in an efficient and sustainable manner and enable economic growth, it said in its statement. We aim to do this in an environmentally responsible manner that takes into consideration the need to reduce local air pollution and is in line with the country's climate change commitments. We believe that the just energy transition strategy, as proposed by Eskom, is a constructive way of transitioning to a cleaner environment while deploying limited funds to create additional generating capacity. So what Eskom is saying here is that Eskom has a plan, but that the politicians have now implemented something that is completely thwarted that. In other words, that transition, what Eskom calls a just transition, now they have changed those plans in September when they signed things, the politicians that they did not understand, and now Eskom basically has to shut down 16,000 megawatts worth of generating capacity. Like I said, this cannot happen, and these stupid politicians now need to make a plan and backtrack on the stupid signing that they did because they weren't thinking further than their noses. They're not educated enough to make decisions for us. So, yes, this is going to become a huge problem now because this is a political ball game. They're not just physically going to shut these stations down. That can't happen. Eskom says at the end, we look forward to working with all stakeholders to ensure this just energy transition. And they said here, while deploying limited funds to create additional generating capacity, rather than investing money in retrofitting expensive technology at aging coal-fired plants with a limited remaining life. So what Eskom is saying, instead of spending billions on retrofitting old power stations, rather spend that money on putting new generation capacity onto the grid. So think about what was just said. I'm not sure the public understands what this means. That a regulator, based on signatures that happened due to a climate accord in September of this year, that Eskom now has to shut down because of this regulator's decision that they want to get a waiver on the pollutants from the coal-fired power stations, now need to shut down 16,000 megawatts worth of generating capacity. I will bring you a lot more on this because this is going to be something very important to watch and has been in my sights since I started the Double Odes tour in last year. I've been speaking about this at length, the attack on Eskom and how that will destabilize the country. Thank you very much for watching this. Please share this with your friends and family. It's very important that people understand what this means. The country cannot afford this. We cannot afford this. The economy cannot afford this. Eskom knows this. They have come up with what they call a just transition plan, and that includes running these power stations while we build new capacity. In the meantime, we have politicians making agreements with people overseas that we did not elect that is literally going to, if we implement and enforce removing 16,000 megawatts, will plunge this country into a literal dark nightmare. Thank you very much. Till the next video.